no magic in Dune. At least that's my interpretation. I said this recently in a video I made about Dune prophecy, and a lot of people were not so sure about that, so let me explain. Dune is typically categorized as a sci-fi story, but it absolutely has elements that feel more fantasy. So what makes it science fiction? Sci-fi is all about asking questions, usually big questions about the nature of humanity. Take an unfamiliar element, space, aliens, time travel, and see what humans would be like in that unknown situation. By doing so, the storyteller presents an aspect of humanity from a new perspective. What kind of question was Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, asking about humanity? Well, to be honest, he was asking a lot of questions, but in regards to our topic and magic, he was asking questions about the idea of human evolution. When looking to the future, a lot of writers imagined a world ruled by advancing technology, robots, androids, cyborgs, AI, all that kind of stuff. Herbert did a really interesting thing in leaping past all that to get to something he thought was more interesting. By the time the main story begins, AI, or thinking machines, are already a thing of the past. 10,000 years earlier, humankind decided to eradicate all of them. So if humans are going to continue existing and expanding into the universe, especially without the help of intelligent machines, Herbert imagined they would have to evolve. And he saw that evolution not so much as a physical one, but an extreme evolution of the mind and its powers over the human body. Let's look at some of the powers of the Bene Gesserit. We have the voice, where they basically can speak in a way that hypnotizes people. They have the ability to determine the gender of a child they give birth to, and they can also tell when people are lying. How are these not magical? While these powers may not actually be scientifically possible, the story is depicting such a distant future that the human race is not even one collective group anymore. There's subspecies with their own abilities that have come about over tens of thousands of years of deliberately cultivating those abilities. So however far-fetched it may seem, there's still a theoretically logical explanation within the world of the story, as opposed to magic. And the most obvious example of that is the world of Harry Potter. There are some rules to the way magic works in this universe, but ultimately nobody is asking how Harry walks into a tent and it's way bigger on the inside, because it doesn't need an explanation. It's magic. That's the essence of something magical. It defies reality. There is no explanation. But there are explanations for the strange aspects in Dune. Let's come back to one of those Bene Gesserit abilities. The voice is defined as Bene Gesserit training, which allows them to control someone using selected tone shadings of their voice. So we know the brain responds to audio stimuli in an involuntary way. For example, very low frequencies can induce discomfort in people even if they're not aware of the sound. What if, over tens of thousands of years, certain sounds were discovered that could make people obey commands? And what if, over 10,000 years, certain people cultivated their voice in a way that they could replicate those sounds? Is it scientifically accurate now? No. Is there a theoretical explanation that stems logically from the world in which the story is set? Yes. Another great example would be Paul's ability to see the future. How can that not be magic? The whole story revolves around Paul having such incredible powers that a whole civilization believes him to be a messiah. But still, there is an internal logic to it. As the son of a powerful duke, Paul is the beneficiary of a whole bunch of different forms of training and genetic predisposition to certain abilities. His mother is a Bene Gesserit and trains him in those abilities. He also receives mentat training, which, just to clarify really quickly, a mentat is essentially a human computer, a person that thinks fast enough that they can calculate the same way a robot would. And then there's spice, which is the most valuable substance in the universe because it acts as a catalyst to all these mental abilities that humans have been developing over tens of thousands of years. I've only scratched the surface about some of these theories that Frank Herbert had about possible human evolution, but just imagine that Paul is the culmination of several different branches of these. So at one point in the story, when Paul is at the peak of his Bene Gesserit training, his mentat training, his Fremen training, and goes through some mind-altering transformations with spice, he basically gains godlike abilities. When he's seeing the future, what he's actually doing is calculating all possible probabilities and determining the most likely outcome with such accuracy that it's like he's seeing the future. Now, I'll admit, some of these ideas about human evolution are so radical that the difference between them and magic is like razor thin. But I still think it's important to recognize that it all stems from asking a question about an aspect of humanity. What are the limits of the human mind if it was allowed to evolve over tens of thousands of years? And in Frank Herbert's imagination, there really are no limits to the human mind, and it's both an exciting and terrifying future to imagine. And I did want to point out one other little observation I had. Despite all this change in humans and these gained abilities, there are many aspects about humanity that remain the same. Their desire to follow strong appearing leaders, their desire to have beliefs, and their desire for power. I'm absolutely open to different interpretations though, so if you have different ideas about how the way magic is or is not in Dune, let me know.